once I got sponsored, like my first sponsors, I was probably about like 12.
And this was snowboarding to start?
Yeah, so
Okay.
snowboarding kind of like took off. I remember my friend, us being like, yo, like, because I was competing skating. Like I would go to this, I would compete like locally and stuff when I was around like 12 or so. And so it was going to be like skateboarding or snowboarding, but obviously being from Canada, it's just like, it was just easier to, and I was just translating all that energy from skateboarding into snowboarding. And so I started competing and doing well, and locally, nationally, then, doing World Cups and stuff. But I picked up my first couple sponsors, and then immediately it was like I was already like my first design work, like because I remember writing letters to them like, oh, I just learned like backside 540s or whatever, and like here's a t-shirt design. And I was like, reinterpreting things that were just in my life. Like there was this logo, it was a Popsicle Pete like popsicle logo that I flipped for West Beach, which was actually like my first sponsor. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of been a part of my DNA the whole time, is just to like reimagine things, bring something new to it.
That's so crazy to think back on that time period and what might have become of those creative instincts that you had, because, like sending fucking sponsor me tapes and
Yeah.
like t-shirt designs to brands and stuff. It's so crazy because nowadays, I mean, what does that energy turn into? I mean, are you a kid with a fucking fan page on Instagram or doing some sort of like weird YouTube edits, or do you end up starting your own brand, or do you end up, writing an email to some influencer and you end up kind of working under them or whatever? Like the pathways that kids take are so much more varied. Whereas at that time, you really had nothing to do besides to sort of like pitch your services to an established brand.
Yeah. And it was a big shot in the dark for me, like being from where I was from, but it happened, it's just like, I think even with the tools kids have now with technology, it's rad because you can actually connect with a person, a brand, whatever. You can actually educate a brand on something that they don't even know is about themselves. You know what I mean? That you're like, oh, this could be like a whole new thing. And I think that direct communication is rad, like if you have a vision and or you can just go out and do it. And that's kind of what I did later in my life too, with just doing it first and then like affecting the brand and making some kind of wave so that it's noticed and felt,
There's nothing that gets me more like inspired or excited than the many times in my life where I've watched like a BMX DVD or a skate video or whatever, and it's like clear that these are some young ass kids and that they're just good as fuck at the whole thing. Like their filming is sick, their music taste is sick, they know what tricks are cool, etc. That will just give you this feeling of like, holy fuck, like I'm in for 10 plus years of like whatever this person's going to bring to the table creatively. Like that's such an amazing feeling, just realizing that kids have that in them still,
Yeah, and they got phones. You don't even need to have the friend with the VHS camera. It's like Facts. Everybody can film each other, and there's all kinds of tools, and that's so exciting that you can but yeah, back then I was like, I would find any way to make it happen, with my own, filming from VHS to VHS player to like make a video edit and like, taking my friend's band song or like whatever, just making it happen and making my version of what, I was learning about like on a higher level through like Powell videos or Santa Cruz or like,
Were skating and snowboarding like equal to you, or were you more into one or the other, and then the snowboarding just happened to be the thing that was really working out?
I think it's equal. I think that like skateboarding was definitely like my first love, and is that whole style that I developed as a young skater. I brought that to snowboarding, but definitely, having the ski hill down the road and just going there after school, and that's all I could think about, and it was and it just kind of happened fast, and I ended up competing, and then like dropped out of school, and my mom gave me like just a crazy amount of freedom as a kid, which
Really?
is I was really lucky in that way to like be going on these road trips with like dudes that were like 19, 20 when I was 12 or whatever, you know,
Right.
that really got me out. So that by the time I was like 14 or 15, I was, you know, almost turning pro. By the time I was 16, 17, I was like won my first like big pro contest, beat out all the like, it was like an invitational. It was called the Super Session. It was in Sweden, and it was kind of like I got lucked out because somebody got hurt. I just gotten a new sponsor. They called me like, hey, somebody got hurt. We want to put you in this contest. And it was against like the heavy hitters like Peter Line and Daniel Frank and Igmar Bachmann, all these guys that were like kind of the gods at the time. And I was a nobody, and I just pulled up and won the contest. I was like 16 or 17. It was like $50,000, and
What?
that changed everything, because I went back home and it was like, then I was like, man, I'm gonna do this. And then my mom was like, yeah.
In
do
retrospect,
it.
did you kind of get lucky, or were you just actually nice as fuck and undiscovered?
No, I was definitely nice for sure, but I got lucky in the sense that
They weren't on
that
their A game?
no, hell
Oh,
no.
really?
Like I definitely delivered, but it was just the way I got lucky was to get into that kind of contest.
Yeah.
Because it was invitational only. It wasn't like open to whoever. It was the top 25 riders in the world, you know? So I was just the new kid on the scene that luckily this guy, Ben Proust, that brought me on to Solomon at the time, which he had just gotten his job, and was like, I believe in you. You should go to this contest. I can get you in. And that was where I really lucked out. I had somebody believing in me. And that's where I feel like I've been fortunate in my life the whole way along, is just to, as much as I was missing a lot of other things in my life probably, but I had people around me that you know, older guys and stuff that were like, I believe in you. You
Right.
know, you got to do this. And I'm like, I knew I could do it, but I needed that kind of that help, you know?
On a purely physical level, can you contrast and compare like rolling down the street on a skateboard versus like rolling down a mountain on a snowboard? Because it's got to be very different sensations. Like one, you could hit a fucking pebble and be going head first into the ground, and one, you're pretty much just like smoothly gliding through there. I've never
Or
really
you get
got
in an avalanche. You know?
Right. Well, I never got into that shit, but I always have like looked at it. It just looks like so fun and just
Oh, it
smooth
is.
and nice in
It is.
comparison to skating or bike riding, where you're like, it seems like more like guaranteed pain and that shit, right?
Well, I mean, it's guaranteed. I mean, on the level of like when you're a pro, it's guaranteed pain. You're definitely like, you know, I've broke my back, broke all my ribs, broke my arm, broke my legs. Like I've, you know, fucked myself up quite a bit, but it's just because it's high impact, you know. It's like snow is soft, but when you're going like 60 and you're flying over 100-foot gap, you know, like it's not but yeah, I mean, skateboarding's gnarly. Like skateboarding is the gnarliest to me. I mean, they're both gnarly. You can die doing both, you know? So that's the way I see it. Same with surfing, same with BMX. It's like when you're pushing it on that level, you know, I've had friends die doing it. So it's different because you're out, you know, if you're skating a ramp or you're skating down the street. I mean, obviously the contrast to like being in the mountains and that kind of stillness of the mountains and quietness is what I would say the difference is, where it's like really peaceful, but when you're throwing down, it's it can definitely.
Which one do you prefer? Like the stillness of being off in the mountains, or like just the hubbub of being in the city and like, you know, just being out skating or riding bikes? It's like you have to kind of like crave chaos in a way, because you're
Right.
putting yourself in an environment where a fucking homeless guy is going to start screaming at you, and that's just part of what you're doing out there for the day, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know if I prefer one or the other, but I'm super grateful that I have both and that balance in my life. And as a kid growing up in the country and all the stuff that I was learning about through videos, I definitely was attracted to the city. And, you know, post snowboarding, I ended up like, you know, moving to New York and being there. I lived there in Brooklyn for 16 years and just like all of the, I think what I love about being in a city is just like the world is in front of you. You know, you can learn so much immediately just by walking out the door, and so many different cultures and way of life, and so much visually happening. And I think that the mountains is something that is really peaceful and powerful as well. It's just, so I'm happy that I get to kind of like tap into both worlds, you know?
It definitely probably makes you like a more complete artist or human, that you have like so much experience with both, being that they're similar but so different.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, they've both given so much to my life, you know?
For sure. So when you were going on all these trips with like 20-year-olds plus dudes and you're like 14 or 15, I've seen this dynamic of BMX where the fucking young kids get turned out like super young, and they're getting
Right.
drunk as fuck and smoking weed and hooking up
Yeah.
with girls. Did you have that kind of experience where all of a sudden you had to grow up real fast?
I mean, I was definitely exposed to all that. And I think that, yeah, it's funny. I just transferred all these old tapes, and I saw like the footage of, you know, the dudes I was rolling with and how they, you know, and yeah, I mean, I guess I did. I guess I did. I think that in a way I kind of like paced myself just because I was exposed to so much chaos and that kind of lifestyle, that I think I was always looking at it and going, it definitely sucked me in a bit in my life, but I think that I also had my guard up a little bit, and didn't get too fucked up along the way, you know, and that's how I'm still here, you know?
So when you take that big W in that contest, how does your life change from there? And do you just get like laser focused on like, okay, I'm going to be the fucking boss in this shit?
Yeah, well, because that was my opportunity to leave school, you know, and so I was like, I'm not going back to this, and I don't want to. School to me was so much like, it was just, I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't get anything from it. I don't really have any good memories of it, and so it was my opportunity to make it happen. I'm like, I'm not gonna fuck this up, and I really did get really focused, and use competing as like a way to kind of get out into the world and get that support and make money. And that's what allowed me to stay out there doing it. And then I was starting to like provide for my family, you know, at a young age. And a little later on, I think like the contest stuff kind of burnt me out a bit. And then I really got into like making my video part, kind of where I discovered all this stuff, watching the videos and picking the song and like working all year to like put together a part that I felt pushed the sport, pushed the whole shit forward, but it represented me, and that's the stuff that I'm probably the most proud of.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe. We just hit 200K. We're trying to get to 300K.
Turn this up.
Appreciate y'all.
Let's go.